Hey, wide awake family. If you're not part of the family yet and love creepy stories, then hit that subscribe button and join us. Tap the bell icon so you'll never miss a story. It really helps out the channel. If you've already done all that, then smash that like button to lock it in, and please tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I would love to interact with you legends. Now to the story.
I honestly thought I was over the whole dating app thing, but boredom got the better of me. I'd been single for a while and scrolling through profiles late at night felt like cheap entertainment more than anything. Then I came across this guy. Average looking, kind of plain, but not unattractive. His pictures weren't trying too hard, no shirtless bathroom shots or fake smiles, just normal stuff like him at a park, holding a coffee, sitting by a river. Something about the simplicity actually made me swipe right. We matched and started talking. He was easygoing online, not pushing for anything, not acting weird. After a couple days of chatting, he suggested meeting up. Normally, I'm cautious, but he seemed harmless. We agreed to meet at this casual place near town, kind of half cafe, half bar. Nothing fancy, just neutral ground. When I walked in and spotted him, I froze. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up right there. He didn't just look a little familiar, he looked exactly like my ex. Same build, same jawline, even the way his hair sat messily to one side. For a second, I thought maybe I was being dramatic, but then I saw it, the tattoo on his forearm. A snake wrapped around a dagger, the exact same design my ex had. I couldn't process it. I felt trapped between walking out and not wanting to seem rude, so I sat down with him. I tried to laugh it off, saying he looked like someone I used to know. He smiled and told me it was just a coincidence. The tattoo. He said he got it years ago and didn't know anyone else with it. The whole thing felt wrong, but I forced myself to go along with the night. We talked for a while, but I couldn't stop staring at it. Every little thing he did mirrored my ex, tapping the table when he talked, tilting his head when he listened, even how he pushed his sleeves up his arms. It was like watching a ghost of someone I'd already lived through. By the time I left, I told myself it was just a weird trick of the universe. People do look alike sometimes. Maybe I was just sensitive because of how badly things had ended with my ex. That night, when I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Curiosity got the better of me, and I looked through his photos again. They seemed normal enough, but the more I stared, the more I noticed the resemblance wasn't just in person. Even in the pictures, he had the same poses, same smirk, same clothing style. My ex used to wear this specific leather jacket. Guess what? This guy had the same one in a photo. It nagged at me until I decided to snoop. His Instagram was linked to his profile, so I started scrolling through. Most of his posts were recent, like from the past year, not many older ones. That stood out, but what really made me uneasy was how many of the captions seemed recycled. I recognized some of them because my ex used to post the same quotes, same jokes, same phrases. I went deeper, checking tagged photos. There weren't many, but I stumbled across one where someone had tagged him with a completely different name than the one he gave me. I clicked that tag. It led to a locked account with no profile picture. Still, the username had a familiar vibe, like a variation of a nickname my ex once used. I felt this cold realization crawling over me. I went back to his dating app profile and compared it again with old screenshots I still had of my ex. The resemblance wasn't a coincidence. The haircut was identical, down to the way the fringe fell. The tattoo looked newer, like it hadn't aged as much as my ex's. The leather jacket, the captions, even the coffee shop photos, they all matched places I'd posted on my own socials. That's what hit me. This guy hadn't just happened to look like my ex. He had made himself look like him. He'd studied my photos, seen the kind of guy I'd been with before, and built himself into a copy. The more I thought about it, the more sick I felt. I remembered how he'd said the tattoo was years old, but the ink had looked fresh when I saw it. The poses in his photos weren't casual, they were rehearsed. He was imitating. I didn't sleep that night. I kept going over every little thing, and brushing off the resemblance like it was nothing, and laughing when I said he looked like someone I used to know. He wanted me to notice. He wanted me to see my ex in him. The next day, I decided to test something. I went private on my socials. Then I posted an old photo of me and my ex where he was wearing a denim jacket with patches. A random throwback, nothing special. 2 days later, I checked his Instagram again. He posted a new photo of himself wearing a denim jacket with patches. Not the exact same one, but close enough to make my chest feel tight. I deleted him everywhere and blocked him, but the damage was already done. I don't know how long he'd been watching me online, or how many little details he collected before showing up in my life. All I know is that he studied the guy I once loved and decided to become him, piece by piece, like some twisted role play. Sometimes I wonder how far it would have gone if I hadn't caught on. Would he have tried to slip more into my life, acting out the same patterns, saying the same words, until I felt like I was right back with my ex again? It's not just the look-alike thing that haunts me. It's knowing someone out there thought that was the way to get close to me. Not by being himself, but by stealing pieces of someone else until he fit the mold he thought I wanted. And the creepiest part is that I'll never really know his real face. The weirdest date I've ever been on started normal enough. I matched with this girl, nothing flashy about her profile. A couple of nice pictures, nothing over the top. She seemed pretty normal when we messaged too. Quick replies, funny comments, not dragging things out. After a few days of talking, we agreed to meet up. She suggested a small place out of the way, not a busy restaurant, but not a sketchy spot either. I thought nothing of it. I got there early and sat down, scrolling my phone to kill the nerves. When she walked in, I remember thinking her pictures didn't do her justice. She looked better in person, kind of soft-spoken at first, a little awkward but in a charming way. We ordered food and started talking. I was just settling into it when another woman walked up to the table. At first, I thought it was just some random who knew her, but when she sat down, my brain almost short-circuited. They looked exactly alike. Same hair, same smile, even the same little dimple on the left cheek. She laughed and said this was her twin sister. It threw me off when I tried to play it cool. The sister was way more forward, cracking jokes, making eye contact that lingered too long, touching her hair like she was waiting for me to notice. The girl I'd matched with just kind of sat back, watching, almost letting her sister take the lead. I didn't know if that was normal for them or if I was being tested. As the night went on, I noticed little things that didn't line up. When one of them got up to use the bathroom, the one who came back didn't seem like the same person. The way she talked was different, more sarcastic, sharper. Her drink order suddenly changed too. When I asked about something we talked about online, she looked at me like she had no idea what I meant. A couple minutes later, she brushed it off with a laugh and said she'd just forgotten. I started feeling like I was losing my mind. Every time I looked away, I swore they swapped. One minute she was leaning in, acting shy and sweet like she had been at the start. The next minute she was smirking, making comments that felt way too bold for someone I'd just met. Their clothes were basically the same, jeans and a dark top, so it wasn't like I could use that to tell them apart. Halfway through, I realized I didn't actually know which one I'd matched with anymore. The one who'd first sat down seemed to fade into the background while the sister, if it really was her sister, kept pulling my attention. At one point, she reached over and tapped my arm, her nails driving a little too slow across my skin. It wasn't playful. It felt like she was trying to make me uncomfortable. When the check came, they both excused themselves at the same time. They went toward the bathrooms together, talking quietly. I sat there alone, just staring at the table and trying to piece together what was happening. 5 minutes passed, then 10. When they came back, I couldn't tell if it was the same two I'd been with earlier or if they'd swapped again. I paid, and they insisted on walking with me for a bit. It was dark by then, and the streets were pretty empty. One of them looped her arm through mine. The other lagged behind. I tried to pull away casually, but she held on tighter. She whispered something I couldn't quite hear, and when I glanced at her, she wasn't smiling. She was just staring at me, almost blank-faced. The walk back felt endless. Every time I turned my head, it felt like I was seeing a different person beside me. Sometimes she looked like the girl I'd matched with, quiet, almost gentle. Other times she looked like the sister, eyes too sharp, grin too wide. By the time we reached the train station, I couldn't tell if I was with one of them or both. I said goodbye and got on the train, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played with. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through her dating profile, and compared it to what I'd just seen. The photos could belong to either of them. They both fit. Same angles, same smile, same everything. When I got home, I checked her Instagram, and it didn't help. Half the pictures had both of them in them, and I realized I'd never actually checked which one had posted them. Some had subtle differences, hair parted differently, slightly different eyeliner, but nothing clear enough to make me sure. The next day, I got a message from her, thanking me for the date. She didn't mention her sister. She didn't say anything about swapping. She just acted like everything was normal. I read it over and over, wondering if it was even her messaging me or if the other one had her phone. I didn't reply. I deleted the app that night. The thing that still messes with me is that I'll never know which one I actually spent the evening with. The girl I matched with or her sister who couldn't stop flirting or some combination of both. It wasn't just confusing, it was like being trapped in a game I hadn't agreed to play, where the rules kept shifting and I was the only one who didn't know what was going on. And the worst part is, if I passed either of them in the street today, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one it was. I thought I finally struck gold on that app. Most of the time it's dry conversations or people who disappear after 2 messages, but this guy stood out. He was funny without trying too hard, actually asked about my day, and came across as genuinely kind. We spent a couple weeks talking before we set up a plan to hang out. Nothing crazy, just chilling at his place, ordering food, watching something. I was nervous but also kind of excited. He seemed like the kind of person who'd make you feel comfortable no matter what. When I got to his apartment building, I messaged him to say I was outside, and he told me to just come up. The hallway was quiet, kind of plain, nothing sketchy about it. I knocked on the door, expecting him to open it with that same friendly smile I'd seen in his photos. But the guy who opened the door wasn't him, or at least that's what I thought. This man looked almost identical, but not quite. His hair was styled differently, his posture seemed off, and his face carried this serious expression, like he was annoyed at me being there. He said he was a roommate. I froze because the resemblance was way too strong for them to be unrelated. He explained that my date would be back soon, and I could wait inside if I wanted. I stepped in feeling awkward. The apartment was clean but weirdly empty, like it had been staged. A couch, a TV, a couple of random decorations, but it didn't feel lived in. The roommate sat in the chair across from me and just stared for a moment too long, then asked me questions. Basic ones at first. How long had I known the guy I came to see, what I thought of him, stuff like that. His tone wasn't friendly, though. It was more like he was testing me. The longer it went on, the more unsettled I felt. The resemblance was eating at me. The nose, the jawline, even a small scar above the eyebrow. It all matched the guy I was supposed to meet. I kept glancing toward the hallway, waiting for the real one to walk out and clear this up. But nobody came. It was just me and this so-called roommate. At one point, he got up and walked into the kitchen. I heard him moving around, and when he came back, something was different. His shirt was changed, his hair was styled the way I'd seen in his profile pictures. And suddenly he was smiling again, calling himself by the name I knew from the app. Like the roommate thing had never even happened. My stomach sank. That's when it hit me. There wasn't a roommate. It was him the entire time. He'd answered the door pretending to be someone else, just to see how I'd react. He wanted to watch me squirm, see if I'd noticed the similarities, maybe test if I'd still stay. I laughed nervously, trying to play it off like I wasn't creeped out, but my brain was racing. I replayed the whole interaction in my head. The way he looked at me and the way he'd changed his tone, how he'd quiz me about himself as if he wasn't there. None of it made sense, unless he got some kind of thrill from playing both roles. We sat on the couch, and he acted like nothing had happened. He asked about food, turned on the TV, started cracking jokes again. On the surface, it was the same funny, easygoing guy I'd talked to online, but I couldn't get past what I'd just seen. His smile seemed fake now, like a mask he was holding up. I excused myself to the bathroom and locked the door. My hands were shaking. I stared at my reflection and thought about leaving right then, but I didn't want to make it obvious. I tried to breathe, pulled out my phone, and texted a friend my location. When I came out, he was sitting there like nothing was wrong, scrolling his phone, but his eyes flicked up at me in this way that made me feel trapped. I forced myself to stay a little longer, pretending everything was fine. He ordered food, but I barely touched it. Every time I looked at him, all I could picture was him opening the door earlier, acting like a different person. I started to notice small slips too. His voice would drop slightly, his expression would harden, and for a split second, it felt like the roommate was back peeking through. Then he flipped the switch and go back to being the nice guy. Eventually, I made up an excuse to leave, saying I had to get up early. He walked me to the door, standing too close, smiling like we had the perfect night. I forced a smile back, but the second I stepped into the hallway, I practically speed walked to the stairs. When I got outside, my chest felt heavy, like I'd escaped something without fully realizing what it was. On the way home, I replayed the night over and over. He'd set it up from the start. He knew I was coming, knew I'd knock, and deliberately opened the door as his roommate just to test me. He wanted to see if I'd question it, if I'd leave, or if I'd play along. What gets me the most is how seamless it was. The way he switched his shirt, his hairstyle, even his body language. It wasn't random. He practiced this. He knew exactly what he was doing. And if he was willing to go that far just to test me on a first date, I can't imagine how much worse it would have gotten if I kept seeing him. I blocked him that night, deleted the app too, but I can't shake the thought that he's probably still out there, doing the same routine to someone else, waiting at his front door with a fake identity, just to see what happens when they realize they've been talking to the same person the whole time. And I don't even want to think about what would have happened if I hadn't noticed. I'd never thought much about offering rides for first dates. Most people tell you it's a bad idea, but I've always been kind of laid back about that stuff. So when this girl I've been talking to on the app said she didn't drive and asked if I could pick her up, I didn't think twice. She seemed cool, funny, not over the top. We did messaging for about a week, and she never gave off any weird vibes. I pulled up outside her apartment and texted her I was there. A couple minutes later, she came down the steps, smiling like she'd been waiting all day for this. She slid into the passenger seat, and everything felt normal. She smelled good, had that easygoing energy, and for the first few minutes we just made small talk, laughing at dumb things we joked about before. Then I glanced at the rearview mirror. There was a kid sitting in the back seat. Small, maybe 7 or 8 years old, just staring forward. He hadn't said a word, hadn't made a sound, and I had no idea how long he'd been there. My chest tightened instantly, and I gripped the wheel harder. Before I could even process what I was seeing, she leaned back in her seat casually and said, "Ignore him, he just comes everywhere with me." Like it was the most normal thing in the world. I tried to act calm, but my head was spinning. I wanted to ask a million questions. Who was this kid? Why didn't she mention him before? Why did she think bringing a child on a first date was fine? But the way she said it made it sound final, like she didn't want me to push further. The kid didn't move. He just sat there, hands in his lap, eyes fixed out the window. Not fidgeting, not curious, not even reacting to me looking at him in the mirror. The silence in the car got so heavy it felt like the air thickened. I thought maybe it was her little brother, but something about the way she spoke on him didn't sound like that. She didn't introduce him or explain anything. She just brushed it off like this was her routine. Like anyone she went out with should just accept it. We kept driving, and I tried to keep a conversation going with her, but my focus kept darting back to the mirror. Every time I checked, the kid was staring at me now. Not smiling, not blinking much, just watching me. It was the kind of look that makes you forget what you were saying mid-sentence. When we got to the restaurant, I thought she'd at least take the kid out with us, but she didn't. She turned to me and said he'd be fine waiting in the car. That made my stomach drop. I argued with myself in my head. Was I really supposed to just leave a kid sitting alone in my car while I went on a date? But she got out, shut the door, and started walking toward the entrance like nothing was wrong. I sat there for a second, glancing back. The kid hadn't moved. No phone, no toy, nothing. Just sitting perfectly still in the dark back seat. Eventually, I followed her inside, but I couldn't even taste my food. My head was buzzing the entire time. She acted normal at dinner. She laughed at jokes, asked about my family, told me random stories from her life, but there was this edge to everything she said. Like she was watching to see how I'd react, just like she did in the car. After about an hour, she said she was ready to head back. The whole time I was walking to the car, my chest was tight. When I unlocked it, I half expected the back seat to be empty, like maybe I'd imagined him. But no, he was still there, same position, same blank stare. The drive back to her place was worse than the first. She barely talked this time, just humming to herself, while the kid's eyes burned into the back of my head through the mirror. I kept gripping the wheel, counting down the streets until I could drop her off. When we pulled up outside her building, she thanked me like nothing was wrong and got out. She leaned in the window and told me to drive safe. Then she shut the door and walked up the steps. I thought she'd take the kid with her, but she didn't. He stayed in the back seat. I froze. My brain couldn't keep up. I turned around and said I thought she forgot him, but he just stared back at me, silent. I looked up at her apartment door, ready to call out, but she was gone inside. No lights on, no sign of her. My skin was crawling. I turned back, and the seat was empty, completely empty. I don't know how long I sat there, gripping the steering wheel with my heart slamming in my chest. Eventually, I drove off, shaking the whole way home. I kept checking the mirror every few seconds, expecting to see him sitting there again. I deleted the app that night. I blocked her number, her socials, everything. But I can't stop thinking about what she said in the car, that he just comes everywhere with her. And sometimes when I'm driving alone at night, I catch myself glancing in the mirror, half expecting to see him there, sitting quietly waiting. I don't usually agree to weird requests on dating apps, but this guy made it sound harmless. He told me one of his hobbies was photography, and he liked practicing with different lighting setups and portraits. He asked if I'd be interested in modeling for him. He emphasized, over and over, that it was just for fun, nothing serious, no pressure. You'd provide the clothes. Nothing revealing, he promised, just something simple, out of experimenting with old-fashioned aesthetics. Normally, I would have said no. Every photographer I've met online turned out to be some creep with a half-broken camera and an excuse to get women alone. But this guy seemed different. His profile had a ton of cityscapes and abstract photos, streetlights reflected in puddles, black and white buildings, weird angles of bridges. It all looked legit, like he actually cared about the craft. And honestly, I was bored. Too many first dates that ended with the same awkward drinks and small talk. So I agreed. He lived a little outside of town in a basement apartment. The kind of place you wouldn't even notice driving past, just a narrow stairwell leading down from the street. When I knocked, he opened the door immediately, almost like he'd been standing right there waiting. Inside, my nerves eased a little. He wasn't lying about the photography set. The place was cramped, but he had lights on tripods, a roll of backdrop paper hanging against the wall, and a desk cluttered with cameras, lenses, and boxes of Polaroid film. It looked professional enough to feel safe. He handed me a folded outfit. Bathroom's right there. Take your time. I unfolded it. A white blouse with puffy sleeves and a long, dark skirt that brushed the ankles. Simple but weird, like something you'd wear in an old photo from the 1920s. Not exactly flattering, but not revealing either, so I figured whatever. When I stepped out wearing it, he looked at me like he'd been waiting years for that exact moment. His grin was wide, but it wasn't flirtatious. It was satisfied. At first, it was fine. He barely talked, just adjusted the lights and told me where to stand. The shutter clicked. Polaroids spat out with that familiar mechanical buzz. He'd snap one, shake it, then tuck it onto his desk. Turn your head a little. Sit in the chair. Hands folded. It felt awkward, but not dangerous. He seemed completely absorbed in the process. Then, while shifting in the chair, my eyes drifted to the wall behind his desk. Rows of Polaroids were pinned there, neatly aligned like some kind of gallery. Dozens of them. At first, I thought they were just test shots, practice portraits of friends or other models. But when I leaned closer, my stomach nodded. Every single woman was wearing the exact same outfit I had on. The white blouse, the long, dark skirt. Same backdrop, same lighting. And the faces. Their mouths were tight, their eyes wide. Not smiling, not posing playfully. Just frozen, like something had startled them a second before the flash. I stared too long. When I turned back, he was already watching me, camera in hand, not saying a word. Keep going, he said finally, but his tone had changed. Sharper now, not casual, more like an order than a suggestion. I forced myself to keep posing, trying to act normal. My skin buzzed with adrenaline, every instinct screaming to get out. But the way he stared at me through that lens made me feel pinned in place, like if I ran, he'd chase me. I tried not to look at the wall again, but my eyes kept flicking back, row after row of strangers in my same clothes. Were they all people like me? Random matches off apps? How many women had stood in this same spot, thinking it was just a harmless photo shoot? He set the camera down and stepped closer. Too close. Collar's crooked, he muttered, and with deliberate slowness, he adjusted the blouse at my neck. His fingers lingered too long, brushing my skin. I fought not to flinch. Then he stepped back, raised the Polaroid, and snapped another shot. The instant whir of the film spitting out sounded like a gun cocking. That was it. I couldn't stay. I forced a laugh and said I was overheating under the lights, that I needed some air. My voice cracked halfway through, but I prayed he didn't notice. He hesitated. His eyes flicked toward the wall again, then back to me. Finally, he nodded. Bathroom's right there. My hands shook as I peeled off the outfit in the bathroom, pulling on my own clothes like armor. I shoved the blouse and skirt into a messy heap on the counter and opened the door. He wasn't by the camera anymore. He was at the wall, pinning up a fresh Polaroid of me. There I was, in the white blouse and skirt, my eyes wide and glassy like all the others. He didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me at all, just stepped back, admiring his collection like a painter with a finished masterpiece. I muttered something about having to go. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. I grabbed my bag and hurried to the door. He didn't stop me, didn't say goodbye. He just stayed in the middle of that room, staring at the wall of women, my photo now among them. The night air hit me like a slap. I ran to my car, heart hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out before I even got the keys in the ignition. The whole drive home, I couldn't get the image out of my head. The rows of Polaroids, the identical outfits, those hollow, terrified stares. I blocked him that night. Deleted the app completely. But deleting something off your phone doesn't erase it from reality. My picture is still there, pinned to his wall with the others. And the thought that keeps me awake, staring at my ceiling at 3 a.m., is this: how many Polaroids has he added since then? How many more women are standing in front of that backdrop right now, wearing the same white blouse and dark skirt, with their faces already destined to join mine? Sometimes I swear I can feel the weight of those eyes on me. All those women staring out from the wall, begging me to do something, to tell someone. But all I did was run. And now I'm just another face in his collection. I usually like to meet people in public for first dates, bars, coffee shops, anywhere with other people around. But this girl, Maya, insisted I come to her place. She said she wasn't a fan of crowded spots. Too loud, too much energy. She preferred low-key settings where she could actually talk. The way she phrased it, there wasn't much room for debate. She was confident, matter of fact. I didn't get any weird vibes from her leading up to it. We'd been talking for about a week, and she came across as funny, self-assured, even a little flirty. She didn't strike me as reckless or sketchy. Honestly, I thought maybe she just didn't like wasting time with awkward small talk at noisy bars. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. She texted me the address and told me to come around 8. The building looked normal enough from the outside. Old brick, a little worn down, but not the worst in town. I stood at the front door and buzzed her number. The buzzer didn't work. After a moment, she came down herself. "Hey," she said brightly, like we were old friends. She was exactly like her pictures, no obvious catfish tricks. Casual jeans and a sweater, confident smile. We went inside, and right away something felt off. Her apartment looked half empty. There was a couch, a coffee table, and a lamp in the corner, but nothing else. The walls were completely bare, no paintings, no photos, not even a clock. The kitchen counters were spotless except for a couple of plain plates stacked near the sink. No magnets on the fridge, no clutter. It was like walking into a showroom, not someone's home. She didn't act like anything was unusual. She led me to the couch, sat down, and asked about my day. She was friendly, engaging, even funny in person. If anything, she seemed warmer than she had over text. But the whole time, I couldn't shake the emptiness of her place. It didn't fit her at all. After a while, I asked if she'd just moved in. It felt like the obvious explanation. She laughed softly, almost dismissively. "Nah, I just keep things simple. I don't like clutter." That was it. No elaboration. The way she brushed it off left me more unsettled than before. It wasn't the answer itself. It was how she said it, like she'd already rehearsed that exact line. We ordered takeout, and while we waited, she opened her laptop to stream something. No TV in the living room, no bookshelf, no visible hobbies or signs of a life. Just that one couch and a cheap-looking lamp. The food came, and we ate together on the couch. She kept the conversation flowing easily, stories from her job, a rant about a bad roommate she once had, a few sarcastic jokes. Nothing alarming, nothing creepy. But my eyes kept drifting around the apartment, no shoes by the door, no jackets hung up, no personal touches at all. The longer I sat there, the more it felt like I was in the wrong place. I cut the evening short with a lame excuse about an early morning. She didn't argue. She just smiled, walked me to the door, and said, "We'll talk soon." Her tone was light, like everything had gone fine. Outside, I pulled out my phone to type the address into GPS. I wanted a faster route home. That's when I saw it. The first result wasn't a map. It was a news article. The headline read, 2 units destroyed in apartment fire, building condemned. I froze. The article was dated a few months ago. I clicked it and photos filled the screen. The same building I had just walked out of, but blackened and broken. Windows shattered, roof partially collapsed. Charred brickwork hash smeared across the walls. It was unmistakable. The headline listed the exact address, apartment numbers included. The article described how the fire had gutted the top floor and left the lower apartments uninhabitable. The whole building had been condemned, residents evacuated. No one was supposed to be living there anymore. I refreshed the page, double-checked the number on the building, then looked back up at it in disbelief. From where I stood, it looked fine, just old. A little rundown, definitely not burned to the ground. But my phone told a different story. A sick realization crawled over me. The emptiness. The lack of personal stuff. The bare walls. She wasn't living there. She couldn't be. She was using it. The thought made me go cold. I replayed the night in my head, the way she brushed off my question out moving in, the empty fridge, the couch that looked like it had been dragged in off the street. The more I thought about it, the more details lined up. The apartment hadn't felt lived in because it wasn't. So what was it? An abandoned unit? A squatter tied out? And if she wasn't living there, then why insist I meet her there and nowhere else? I didn't go back. I didn't text her, didn't ask questions. I blocked her number that night and deleted the app. But sometimes late at night, the memory crawls back. I picture myself sitting on that couch in the middle of an empty room, surrounded by walls that weren't hers, in a building that wasn't even supposed to exist anymore. And the scariest part isn't the emptiness. It's knowing I wasn't the first person she invited there. And I doubt I was the last. Because people like her don't insist on meeting in condemned buildings for no reason. They do it because no one else is watching. And if something happened to me that night, if I never walked back out, who would have believed I was ever there at all? I've been on a handful of dating app meetups, and most of them are forgettable. Dinner, some awkward small talk, maybe a hug at the end. Then a ghosted text the next day. Nothing that sticks in my memory. This one, though, I still can't get it out of my head. He seemed normal. That's the part that rattles me the most, because that's always how it starts, right? He seemed normal. We matched a week earlier. His profile was pretty average. A couple of pictures of friends, one with a dog, the usual vague bio about loving travel and good food. He wasn't overly charming, not pushy. Just normal, safe. When we met for dinner, he was polite. A little quiet, but I didn't mind that. He made me laugh a couple of times. Asked me about school and work, even my family. Nothing too deep, nothing prying. Just a pleasant, surface-level kind of conversation. I remember thinking he wasn't the most exciting person I ever met, but he also wasn't setting off any alarm bells. When the check came, he insisted on paying. I offered to split it, but he waved it off quickly, like he didn't even want to entertain the idea. Then he smiled and said, "I'll drive you home." I told him it wasn't necessary, that I could just grab an Uber. He kept insisting. "Come on, it's on my way. No reason for you to waste money." His tone was light, casual, but firm in a way that made it hard to keep refusing. Eventually, I caved. We walked out to his car, and that's when I felt the first little knot in my stomach. It was just a ride home, I told myself. No big deal. He opened the passenger door for me. The car was spotless, unnaturally so. No empty water bottles, no fast food bags shoved under the seat, no stray receipts. Just this overwhelming smell of air freshener, like he'd sprayed way too much before picking me up. I buckled in, trying not to overthink it. The first few minutes were fine. He asked what I thought of the food, joked about how slow the service had been. His voice was calm, his hands steady on the wheel. Then he made a turn I didn't recognize, a smaller side street instead of the main road. At first, I figured maybe he knew a shortcut, but then my eyes drifted to the phone mounted on his dashboard. The Maps app was open. My address was typed in at the top. Step-by-step directions were already running. And the problem, the part that made every hair on my body stand on end, was that I had never told him where I lived. Not in the app, not over dinner, not in conversation. Not once. I froze. My mouth went dry. My heart started pounding so hard I thought you might actually hear it. He didn't say anything. His eyes stayed locked on the road. Both hands gripped the steering wheel like he was totally focused on driving. The glow from the phone screen lit up his face in cold blue light, and it felt like the only sound in the entire car was that robotic GPS voice calmly giving directions. Turn left in 400 feet. I stared at the screen, my brain scrambling for explanations. Did I slip up and mention something without realizing? Did he Google me? Check my social media? Had he followed me before? Nothing made sense. Nothing explained why he had my exact address already entered into his phone. And the longer I thought about it, the more I realized something else. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't waiting for me to notice. It felt like he already knew I'd see it, and he just didn't care. We drove block after block, and every turn the GPS called out matched the exact way I normally went home. Every single one was right. My stomach twisted tighter with each one. I considered grabbing the door handle and jumping out at the next stoplight, but my body wouldn't move. My hands felt cemented to my lap and my throat locked tight. I didn't want to let him know I'd realized. So I sat there pretending to look out the window while inside. My chest felt like it was collapsing. Turn right in half a mile. The robotic voice filled the silence. Continue straight for 2 miles. Each command was like a countdown. When the GPS said we were about 5 minutes away, he finally broke the silence. So, he asked, his voice casual, "Did you like the restaurant?" I muttered a quick yes, my voice too high-pitched, too fast. I forced a little smile without looking at him. He didn't push the conversation further. The car felt like a coffin. When we turned onto my street, my panic boiled over. "Here's fine," I blurted. "I'll walk from here." He glanced at me briefly, then slowed the car and pulled over to the curb. He didn't argue. Didn't question why I suddenly wanted to get out early. He just unlocked the doors. I grabbed my bag, mumbled thanks, and stepped out as fast as I could. My legs were shaking so badly I almost tripped. I forced myself to walk calmly toward my building. My back prickled with the feeling of his eyes on me. When I finally reached the door and turned around, he was still there. Engine running. Headlights off. Just sitting, watching. Inside, I fumbled with my keys, dropping them twice before I got the lock open. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely fit the key in the door. Once I was inside, I pressed my back against it and listened. No footsteps, no sound of him following. Still, I didn't breathe until I was up the stairs in my apartment with the deadbolt locked. That night, I deleted the app. I blocked his number. But I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The GPS screen glowing in the dark, my address typed neatly across the top, his hands gripping the wheel like he'd done this drive before. Because that's the thought that chills me the most. It wasn't just that he knew where I lived. It was the way he drove, the quiet confidence in every turn, like this wasn't the first time he'd gone down those streets, like maybe he'd been past my building before. And maybe, just maybe, that night wasn't the first time he'd been parked outside waiting. I wouldn't even call the first date bad. It was just awkward. We matched on a Sunday, talked for a week, and then met up at this little diner on the edge of town. She was normal enough, pretty, polite, not loud or obnoxious, but the whole time the vibe was just off. Long pauses stretched between us. She kept looking down at her hands, fiddling with her napkin. I scrambled to fill the silence with dumb stories that didn't land. It wasn't awful, it just wasn't clicking. When the check came, I paid. We walked outside, hugged goodbye in the parking lot. I figured that was that. No sparks, no disaster. Just one of those forgettable app dates that fade into nothing. I didn't expect to hear from her again. And I didn't. A couple weeks went by, I matched with other people, went on a couple more first dates, the usual. Then one night, half asleep and aimlessly swiping, I saw her profile again. Same name, same pictures, same bio. Word for word. I almost swiped left immediately. My first thought was that the app was glitching, maybe recycling old profiles. But something in me wanted to test it. Curiosity won. I swiped right. We matched instantly. My stomach dipped, but I told myself maybe she just deleted her account and remade it. People do that all the time. I waited, and sure enough, a message came through. She didn't say, "Hey, remember me?" or "Funny seeing you again." Nothing like that. She introduced herself like we'd never met. And not just casually, but exactly the way she had the first time. Same opener. Same little joke about her bio sounding boring, but she swore she was fun. Same emoji at the end. At first I laughed. Maybe she just forgot about me. Maybe she was juggling too many matches and mixed me up with someone else. It happens. But the longer I thought about it, the less sense it made. We sat across from each other for 2 hours at a diner. We hugged in a parking lot. You'll forget that. I decided to test it. I replied with the exact same answers I'd given the first time we matched. She responded the exact same way. Word for word. I actually scrolled back through our old chat and compared them side by side. Identical. Down to the punctuation. That's when the unease started creeping in. It didn't feel like coincidence anymore. It felt rehearsed. I tried to break the script. I asked her about the diner. I said, "Remember when we went to that place with the green booths?" She ignored the question, changed the subject, went right back to small talk. I asked again, more directly this time, "Do you remember meeting me?" She sent another generic message, light, friendly, but dodged the question completely. It was like she couldn't acknowledge it, or didn't want to. I matched her, figuring maybe it was some scam, but a few days later, her profile popped up again. Same name, same pictures, same bio. I swiped right just to see, and we matched instantly again. Her first message, the same opener. Identical. This time I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen, rereading it over and over. The weeks that followed it kept happening. Her profile would vanish, then reappear. Always the same. Same pictures, same smile, same bio. If I swiped, it was an instant match, like she was waiting for me. And always, she'd start the conversation with that same introduction. It felt less like dating and more like a loop. Like I was stuck in some script I couldn't escape. I got paranoid. I reverse searched her photos. Nothing. No stock images, no stolen accounts. I dug up the receipt from our first date. I'd paid with my card and gotten an emailed copy. Her name was on it. She was real. We had dinner. That happened. So why did she keep acting like it hadn't? The last time we matched, I decided to push harder. I asked her directly, "Have we met before?" There was a pause, longer than usual. My stomach tightened as I stared at the little typing bubble flickering on and off. Then her next message appeared. It was the opener. The same one. The exact same one she always used. It felt like she hit reset. That was when I realized I didn't want the explanation. Because whether it was her messing with me or someone copying her or something else entirely, I wasn't supposed to understand it. The pattern wasn't going to stop. I deleted the app that night, but every once in a while, when I get bored and re-download it, I see her face again. Same profile, same bio, same opener waiting for me if I swipe. And every time my finger hovers over the screen. Part of me wants to swipe left and never think about it again. But part of me wonders what would happen if I kept playing along. If I followed the script exactly, all the way through. We end up back at the diner again, sitting across from each other with me rambling about work while she fiddled with her napkin. Would it feel the same? Would she act like it was the first time again? Or would something change? Something I wasn't supposed to see the first time around. I don't know what's worse, the idea that she's real or the idea that she isn't. All I know is that I can't stop seeing her face in my head, smiling the same way, saying the same words, waiting for me to reset along with her. And the more I think about it, the more I wonder if I've actually escaped it all. Because even when the app's deleted, even when my phone's off, I still dream about her sending me that same message. And in the dream, I always swipe right. When people say first dates are repetitive, they mean the questions, the awkward laughs, the recycled anecdotes. They don't mean walking into someone's apartment and realizing he's literally staged them like a play. We'd matched a few weeks before. He seemed normal. A little stiff in his messages, maybe overly formal. He'd write out full sentences with punctuation, which stood out in a sea of half-thought replies and emojis. But not weird, just careful. We messaged enough that when he asked if I wanted to come over for a glass of wine after dinner one night, I didn't hesitate. It felt casual. I'd already built up enough of a sense of him that it didn't feel sketchy. His apartment was clean when I walked in, not just tidy, staged. The couch was perfectly centered with a coffee table. 2 wine glasses already set out. Bottle on the table, uncorked but unopened, as if he'd been waiting for me to arrive to complete the picture. I brushed it off. Some people are neat freaks. We sat down. He poured the wine. Conversation started off smooth enough. The couch was comfortable, the lighting soft and warm, nothing harsh. The walls were beige, the shelves lined with a neat row of books, a plant in the corner thriving under a lamp. It was also curated. At first, I didn't notice the pictures on the wall. They blended in as just part of the decor. But when my eyes finally drifted that way, the unease hit. Frames, lining the wall above the couch. At first, it seemed normal, and with friends, maybe family. Smiling faces in neat black frames. But the more I looked, the stranger they became. Almost every single photo was of him with a woman. Different women each time. Brunettes, blondes, older, younger. But always the same setup. Same couch. Same wine glasses. Same angle. In every photo, he sat on the left, arms stretched casually across the back of the couch, holding his glass in his other hand. The woman sat on the right, slightly turned toward him, smiling stiffly. The repetition was uncanny. I stared too long at one. My stomach twisted. The photo looked exactly like the moment I was in right then. Same couch, same glasses, same pose. I was literally sitting where every other woman had sat before me. I forced a laugh and gestured toward the frames. "You got a lot of pictures," I said. He chuckled, sipping his wine. "I like documenting my life," he said. His tone was light, dismissive, but it wasn't an explanation. I tried to let it go, but every time I glanced back, the pattern became clearer. There were at least 12 photos, maybe more, all neatly framed, evenly spaced, a gallery of nearly identical moments. If you looked closely, some of the women's smiles looked strained, their bodies stiff, hands resting awkwardly in their laps. None of them leaned into him. None had their arm around him. They just sat there, like me. I felt the wine warm in my throat, but couldn't taste it. The room seemed smaller now. Every time he asked me a question, I answered automatically, distracted by the photos. My mind kept looping one thought. I'm just another frame waiting to happen. He poured me another glass, hand steady, smile easy. "So," he said, "tell me about your family." I did, but it felt rehearsed, like he'd asked this before. I was slotting into a script. When I excused myself to use the bathroom, I just needed to breathe. But on the way, curiosity got the better of me. I peeked into his bedroom. More frames. This time, the photos weren't on the couch. They were all standing, posed by the window, and with a hand on a woman's shoulder, or smiling stiffly. Always different women, always the same pose. It wasn't just obsessive anymore. It was ritualistic. Like he wasn't dating people, he was collecting them. When I returned to the living room, he was waiting. Literally waiting. Sitting in his position on the left side of the couch, arms stretched across the back, glass in hand. His eyes followed me as I sat back down in my spot, like an actor waiting for his cue partner to step into frame. I forced a smile. I should probably head out soon, work early tomorrow. His expression flickered just for a second. Something unreadable. Then he smiled again. "So soon? I thought we were having a nice time." The words were casual, but the way he said them, it felt like I was breaking the script. "I really should," I pressed, trying to sound apologetic. "Long day tomorrow." For a moment I thought he'd argue. But then he nodded slowly, like conceding a chess move, and set his glass down. "Of course," he said. My heart pounded as he walked me to the door. I forced another smile, muttered a thank you, and stepped outside. The air felt colder, sharper. My chest loosened as I walked quickly down the street, refusing to look back. On the ride home, the images replayed in my mind. The couch, the women, the identical poses. I kept thinking about their expressions, how some of them looked uncomfortable if you really studied them. Were they fine? Were they telling the same story, laughing about it afterward with friends? Or did their stories end differently? The thought lodged in my chest and wouldn't leave. I blocked him that night, deleted his number, deleted the app too. But the photos haven't left me. Every single woman locked into the same pose, same couch, same smile, all framed and immortalized like props in his endless performance. And somewhere in that apartment, I know there's another frame now, with me in it. One date. That's all it was. One pretty good, surprisingly normal date. We matched on the app, talked casually for maybe a week, and then went out for coffee. It went better than most of my other matches. She was funny, she asked questions, she laughed at my dumb stories instead of forcing polite chuckles. She even made me feel like I wasn't bombing for once, which was rare for me on first dates. We sat there for almost 2 hours, sipping coffee long gone cold, trading little personal details, swapping work horror stories, and commiserating about the whole swiping circus. When it was over, we hugged goodbye. We both said we'd talk again. I remember walking home with this rare, almost fragile optimism. I wasn't thinking she was the one, but I wasn't overthinking it either. It was just nice. Normal. Something that felt like it had potential. I texted her that night, just a quick thanks for meeting me, and she replied with a smiley face. Simple, nothing weird. The weird part came a few days later. I was at work when I got a call from an unknown number. I answered, expecting it to be a client. Instead, it was someone from a medical office. A nurse or receptionist, I don't remember which. She asked me if I could confirm some details for our patient. For her. They said I was listed as her emergency contact. For a second, my brain just froze. I didn't even know what to say. We met once. Coffee, that was it. I think you got the wrong number, I stammered finally. The voice on the other end double-checked. Is this my full name? It was. I hung up. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe she typed in my number accidentally. Maybe it was just a fluke. But then it happened again. This time it was someone from her job. HR, I think. They called me asking if I'd be okay as her point of contact for any work-related emergencies. I sat there staring at my phone after I hung up. I had stepped into someone else's life. How could I already be tied to her like that? That night, I confronted her over text. I asked why she gave out my number like that. She replied quickly, I just trust you. You seem dependable. Trusted me. After one date, we'd known each other for less than 3 weeks. I didn't even reply. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, her landlord called me, asking if I'd be okay being the person they contacted if something happened with her apartment. Rent issues, maintenance emergencies, basically acting like I was her guarantor. That's when it clicked. This wasn't a mistake. She wasn't just throwing my number around randomly. She'd deliberately written me down, again and again. And not just once, across multiple systems, multiple forms, multiple contexts. She was building me into her life on paper, like I was the closest person she had, like we were family. After one date. I blocked her that night, deleted her number, told myself that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The calls kept coming. A dental office rang me to remind me of her appointment. Then a subscription service saying my number was listed as a backup contact for her account. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt a pit in my stomach, like I was being dragged back into her orbit. And then came the emails. Somehow she'd tied me to her accounts. Paperwork started trickling into my inbox, forms where my name was scrawled next to hers, employment paperwork, medical forms, even a school-related document, though she wasn't in school as far as I knew. Seeing my name typed next to hers, over and over, made my chest tighten, like she was stitching me into her life without permission. Each form felt heavier, more binding, like invisible strings tightening around me. The scariest part wasn't the calls, though. It was realizing how much she knew about me. To put me down on that many forms, she had to have more than just my phone number. She had to know my full name, my email, where I worked. I never gave her all of that directly. That meant she looked me out, dug through my socials, maybe deeper, public records, work directories, I don't even know. But she had enough information to make it look like I was her person. Not a date, not an acquaintance, her person. I stopped answering unknown numbers. I switched my email. I even considered changing my phone plan just to shake her off. But the truth is, even if the calls stopped, the weight of it stayed. The feeling that somewhere on paper in databases and records I couldn't see, my name was still tied to hers. Every time I filled out my own forms, every time I wrote my name and number down, I wondered if I'd suddenly find hers attached. It felt like she planted me inside her life like a seed, and now it was growing in places I couldn't control. I still think about that date sometimes, not the coffee, not the easy laughs, not the fragile sense of possibility I felt on a walk home. I think of the way she slid me into her life without asking. The way my phone started ringing with her name echoing through strangers' voices. The way my inbox filled with forms where we looked like a unit, like we'd already been bound together. And the worst part is, none of it was dramatic. She didn't stalk me physically. She didn't show up at my door. She didn't even bombard me with texts after I blocked her. She just rewrote reality, one line at a time, one date, and suddenly I was her emergency contact. When I first matched with him, his job was one of the things that impressed me most. He said he worked nights at a hospital, not glamorous, not braggy, just steady. There was something reassuring about that. While most of the guys I matched with were throwing around tech titles or pretending their startups were legitimate businesses, he seemed normal, grounded. I remember thinking, okay, if he works night shifts in a hospital, he has to be responsible, reliable. He talked about his odd schedule, about how midnight felt like his morning, about drinking coffee when everyone else was going to sleep. It made him sound disciplined, like he built his life around this weird rhythm. I told myself, this is the kind of man who shows up when he says he will. We went out a couple of times. Nothing wild. Dinner at a diner, a walk afterward, coffee another night. He wasn't the most exciting guy, but he seemed decent. Calm. The kind of person who made you feel safe instead of nervous. That mattered more to me than fireworks. Every date ended the same way. He'd glance at the time and tell me he couldn't stay up too late because he had to head to the hospital, and I respected that. Work comes first. The first crack came on a night when I couldn't sleep. I was scrolling another app out of boredom, swiping without much thought. And then I saw him. His profile lit up right in front of me, green dot glowing. Active now stamped under his name. It was close to midnight. He texted me just hours earlier saying he was heading in for his shift, but there he was, swiping away. I stared at the screen, confused. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe he left the app open and it showed him as online. But every time I checked back, there he was. Still active. Still swiping. I felt uneasy, but curiosity went out. The next time we met, I brought it up casually. I saw you online the other night, I said, half joking. At midnight. I thought you were supposed to be at work. He didn't look embarrassed. He didn't even hesitate. He just smiled and said, oh, I was at the hospital, just not as staff. The way he said it made my stomach flip. Calm like it wasn't even a lie. I pressed him. What did he mean? He brushed it off with a shrug. I was visiting. His eyes, though, told a different story. There was this flicker there like he enjoyed me catching him, like he wanted me to imagine what he was really doing. After that, little details started to stick out. He never talked about coworkers. Never mentioned a boss. No patients. No departments. Nothing specific. Just vague comments like, long nights are all the same, or you wouldn't believe how many people come through. Whenever I asked him directly what he did, his role, his responsibilities, he dodged the question. He'd tilt his head, smile, and say something like, I just help where I can. He never wore scrubs. Never had a badge. Every time we met, he was in plain clothes. Jeans, jackets. Casual, but not like someone heading into work. I told myself maybe he just didn't like talking shop. Maybe he changed before he met me. But deep down, a little voice was whispering that something didn't add up. One evening, driving home from work, I happened to pass by the hospital. It was close to the time he usually said he started his shifts. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe I thought I'd see him walking inside. Maybe it would put the doubts to rest. Instead, I spotted him near the entrance. Not going in, not talking to anyone, just standing there, hands in his pockets, watching. Watching people go in and out. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down enough for him to notice me. But as I drove past, my whole body went cold. That night, I messaged him, just to test. How's work? I asked. He replied instantly. Busy night. Lots of patients. Haven't had a break yet. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. I'd seen him. He wasn't inside. He wasn't busy. He was outside, standing still, lying through his teeth. After that, I couldn't unsee it. The way he always mentioned the hospital like a reminder. The way he never had details. The way his job sounded more like a cover story the more I thought about it. I started pulling back. Texts unanswered for hours. Polite excuses when he asked to meet. He noticed. Of course he noticed. When am I going to see you again? He kept asking. I'll make time. Even with my schedule, I'll always make time. always ending with something about the hospital, like he needed me to picture him there. Eventually, I blocked him. It felt dramatic, but the unease was too heavy to ignore. And yet, I can't stop thinking about him. Every time I pass that hospital, I scan the parking lot without meaning to. My eyes flick to the entrance, the benches by the door, the glow of the streetlight, half expecting to see him standing there again. Not inside, not working, just watching. The worst part is knowing he wasn't lying. He really was at the hospital, just not in the way I wanted him to be. I thought it was just going to be another forgettable dating app meetup, the kind where you spend 2 hours making small talk, force a polite laugh or two, and then ghost each other by mutual agreement. But that night stuck in my head for all the wrong reasons. We matched fast. Within a day, she'd sent the first message, a casual opener about the book I'd mentioned in my profile. We messaged back and forth for maybe 3 days. Nothing deep, but easy enough. When she suggested we meet for a drink, I figured why not. She picked a place. Some bar downtown I'd never heard of. Not one of the big names, not one of the trendy rooftop spots with craft cocktails and neon signs. Just a smaller place tucked between two old buildings. I almost missed it completely. The sign above the door was dim and flickering, barely legible. The doorway was narrow, the kind of entrance you'd only notice if you were looking for it. A single bulb glowed over the mat, and the door was propped open with a rock. Music drifted out, something slow old, almost too soft to hear. I stepped inside expecting it to be grimy, but it wasn't. The place was cozy, in a strange dated way. The lighting was low, almost candle dim. A few boots lined one wall, small tables scattered across the floor, and a long wooden bar stretched across the back. The wood looked worn, polished from years of elbows and spilled drinks. In the corner, a jukebox glowed with rotating colors, humming out old songs I didn't recognize. She was already there, sitting in a booth, 2 drinks waiting. She smiled when she saw me, though it was a kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The date itself was fine. Not bad, not great. She was funny, she asked questions, but there was something off. Like she wasn't fully present. She'd laugh at something I said, then stare off for a second too long before answering. She'd sip her drink slowly, like she was stretching it out. Still, I told myself maybe it was nerves. We ordered another round. Talked about movies, music, work, normal date stuff. What unsettled me more wasn't her. It was the atmosphere. The bartender never spoke unless you called him directly, and even then his words were clipped monotone. He didn't smile, didn't make eye contact, just slid the glasses across the counter with mechanical precision. The other patrons, if you could even call them that, were strangers still. Each sat alone, hunched over their drinks. No chatter, no laughter, just silence. Occasionally someone would get up, shuffle to the jukebox, press a button, and sit back down without a word. The music itself was unsettling in its own way. The jukebox played songs I couldn't place. They weren't modern, but they weren't quite oldies either. Strange melodies, lyrics that blurred together, voices that sounded muffled and warped. I tried to hum one later and couldn't. But in the moment, I brushed it all aside. Bars have weird vibes. Dates can be awkward. I didn't overthink it. After a couple of hours, we finished our drinks. She said she had an early morning. I said I had work. We walked out together, hugged briefly, and went our separate ways. Her one direction, me the other. I figured maybe I'd text her later, maybe not. The next night, I was out with some friends downtown. We were bar hopping, bouncing from one place to another when I mentioned the spot for my date. It was kind of hidden, but pretty cool, I told them. Old school vibe, we should go check it out. So I led the way, weaving through the streets until we reached the block. Except when we got there, I froze. The bar was gone. Not closed gone. Not boarded up with a foreclosure sign gone. Just gone. The narrow doorway I'd walked through the night before didn't exist. The space between the two old buildings was bricked over completely seamless, like there had never been a door there at all. The flickering sign was gone, the bulb above the mat gone, the mat itself gone. The buildings stood flush against each other, their walls cracked and weathered, no gap between them. My friends laughed, thought I'd gotten the street wrong. We circled the block 3 times. I retraced my steps, swore I'd seen it right here. But no matter how many times I looked, there was nothing. Just two buildings pressed tight together, shoulder to shoulder, like they'd always been that way. The next day I texted her. What was the name of that bar? I typed. The one we went to last night. No reply. A few hours later I checked her profile. Gone. Not unmatched, gone completely, like she deleted the app. The memory of the night started to gnaw at me. I could still picture everything. The sticky floor. The smell of smoke and old wood. The jukebox glow washing over her face. The way the bartender slid the glasses toward me without a word. I even asked around, just to make sure I wasn't losing it. People who'd lived in that area for years shook their heads. Some swore there hadn't been a bar on that block for decades. A couple said there might have been something way back in the day, but it had closed down years ago, way longer than yesterday. But I was there. I know I was there. I sat in that booth, I held that glass, I heard that music. And yet, it was like the whole night had been erased. Sometimes late at night, I still hear those songs, the ones from the jukebox. Tunes I've never heard anywhere else, no matter how many playlists I scroll through, no matter how many rabbit holes I fall down online. Songs that don't seem to exist outside that bar. Songs I can't forget no matter how hard I try. It started as one of those nights that actually felt like the app was worth it. We matched, had a quick back and forth, then decided to meet at a bar. She was funny, easy to talk to, the kind of person who didn't feel like she had to fill every silence. There wasn't that forced energy, the kind of fake cheerfulness people put on for a first date. We laughed, moved from one place to another, grabbed a couple of drinks, and shared stories. By the end of the night, she asked if I wanted to crash at her place. It was closer than mine, she said, and she didn't want me to walk home late. I said yes. Her apartment looked ordinary. Cozy, lived in, nothing staged or overly fancy. The kitchen counters were cluttered, dishes in the sink, a couple of clothes piled on a chair, candles half burned on the shelves. It had a homey feel, the kind you don't see in Instagram posts, and I remember thinking how refreshing it was. She seemed real, not fake, not trying to impress, just normal. We stayed up a little longer, chatting, scrolling through our phones, ordering late night food. The night ended naturally, and we passed out around 3 in the morning. When I woke the next morning, everything felt off. The apartment was silent, too silent. The sun was creeping through the blinds, but it didn't feel warm. My chest tightened as I realized she wasn't in bed. I got up, still groggy, and went to look for her. That's when I noticed the first thing. The front door had a thick padlock on it, on the outside. I froze. At first, I thought maybe it was some kind of joke, but it wasn't. Not a chain lock, not a deadbolt. An actual heavy metal padlock clamped through a latch, hanging there like a warning. I rattled the handle, but it didn't budge. My mind raced. Was she joking? No, that was way too serious. My pulse jumped, adrenaline spiking. I checked the windows. Every single one of them had been secured from the outside, heavy-duty locks drilled into the frames. Even the fire escape window at the back was clamped tight. My stomach twisted. There was no way out. Then I heard her voice. From the kitchen, calm, cheerful, normal, like nothing was wrong. She called out, asking if I wanted coffee. I walked in, trying not to let panic show, but my pulse was hammering in my ears. She was there pouring cereal into a bowl. Sunlight fell across her face, highlighting her smile. She looked normal, safe, ordinary. Then she said, "You're not leaving yet." Her voice was matter of fact. No anger, no desperation. Just a statement, like it was obvious, like it didn't even need explaining. I forced a laugh, tried to act casual. My mind raced. What I missed? She seemed so normal last night. Funny, easygoing, warm. How had I not seen the warning signs? I sat at the table, pretending to sip coffee, pretending to process, but I couldn't eat. My hands shook as I held the mug. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to run. I glanced at the windows again, then at the front door. All locked, all sealed. She moved around the apartment like everything was normal, chatting about music, TV shows, the news, whatever small talk came to mind. Her voice was steady, calm, comforting almost, and it made me feel insane, because she had literally trapped me in her apartment, and yet she was acting like the most ordinary host in the world. Hours passed like this. I paced, pretending to stretch my legs, pretending to be casual. But every corner, every locked window, every door haunted me. I considered smashing a window earlier, but my fear froze me. Something about the way she moved, calm and observing, made me hesitate. It was like she was testing me, watching for a reaction, waiting to see what I'd do. I tried again to steer the conversation toward leaving. I asked, "Can I step outside for a call?" My voice was shaky, and I felt like a child asking for permission. She tilted her head, smiled wider, and said, "You don't need to call anyone." Her tone, calm and casual, made my blood run cold. She didn't argue. She didn't panic. She didn't even joke. She just stated it like a fact. There was no reasoning with her. So I played along. I sat back down, tried to act normal, tried to sip the coffee she poured. Every second felt like it stretched into eternity. My pulse thumped so hard I thought she could hear it. My mind spun through escape plans, imagining how I might get out if she wasn't paying attention. Eventually, she went into the bathroom. That's when I moved. I grabbed the heaviest chair in the living room and hurled it against the nearest window. Glass shattered, sprinkling shards across the floor, cutting my hands and arms. I didn't wait. I climbed through the jagged opening, bleeding, trembling, but moving faster than I ever had. The street outside was empty, cold, and bright with morning sun. I ran, barefoot, cutting across pavement, ignoring the cuts in my feet. I didn't look back, not once. I never heard from her again. Her profile vanished the next day like she had never existed. No warning, no explanation, no way to reach her. Just gone. But I still hear her voice in my mind. Calm, cheerful, terrifyingly normal. "You're not leaving yet." It's the phrase that haunts me. The memory of that morning sticks in my head like glue. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't obviously dangerous. She was ordinary. Ordinary in a way that made it worse. She could have been anyone. Friendly, inviting, normal. But she wasn't. She had planned every detail, and the normalcy made it all worse. Every time I close my eyes, I can picture the apartment, the padlock, the locked windows, the sunlight catching the edges of the broken glass, the quiet, serene way she poured coffee, humming lightly, acting like it was all fine, the calmness of her voice. It's not just fear I feel when I think about it. It's disbelief. The kind of disbelief that makes you question how well you know people, or if you could ever know anyone. She had been normal, funny, engaging, and yet she had trapped me. The thing that terrifies me most is how convincing she was. How ordinary, how calm, how completely unbothered by the fact that I had realized what was happening. Her normalcy was the weapon, the trap. I can still hear her voice, as clear as that morning, calm, steady, cheerful. "You're not leaving yet." And sometimes, in the middle of the night, when I'm alone in my apartment, I feel a flicker of that panic, the impossibility of the escape, the quiet calm of someone who doesn't care that you've realized the truth. That calm, ordinary voice is unforgettable. It's the memory I can't shake. The morning I should have walked out free, but almost didn't. And the thought that lingers even now is the worst of all. If she seemed that normal to me, to anyone else she meets, no one might ever know she's capable of it. That normalcy, that calmness hides everything. I survived, but that doesn't make it any less haunting. I thought deleting the app would be the end of it. One clean break. No more matches, no more awkward conversations, no more wasted time. I'd had enough of it, the endless swiping, the empty chats that went nowhere, the people who disappeared mid-conversation, leaving me staring at the screen wondering if I'd imagined the connection. It all felt exhausting, pointless, like a loop I couldn't escape. So I deleted my account, every trace gone. Logged out, uninstalled, cleared the cache, reset passwords, everything. I told myself it was done. That should have been it. A clean slate. No digital ties, no algorithmic reminders, nothing to drag me back into that strange, faceless world. Except it wasn't. A couple of days later, boredom, or maybe curiosity, got the better of me. I re-downloaded the app just to see if the urge to swipe had faded, not to actually use it. Maybe it was habit, or maybe I just wanted to feel in control. I logged in, expecting an empty screen, a blank slate, and maybe a small sense of relief. But that relief evaporated the second I saw the notification. A match. That didn't make sense. My account wasn't even active anymore. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered, hesitant, almost afraid to tap. I opened it anyway, and there it was, a single profile waiting for me. A man I didn't recognize. No bio, no indication of where he was from, just a blurry, slightly distorted photo of his face. The message beneath it chilled me to my core. Stop trying to leave. We're not done. I froze. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might echo through the phone itself. I told myself it was a glitch, some random bot error. Maybe the app was recycling old data, some failed match notification from months ago. I tried to reason it out, but it didn't feel like that. It felt personal. Targeted. Like the app knew me in ways I didn't allow. I deleted the app completely that night, removed it from my phone, cleared every cache, even restarted the device. I told myself firmly that I wasn't going back, but deep down, a quiet, nagging fear had taken root. A week later, it happened again. I was at work killing time on my lunch break, scrolling through other social media feeds to distract myself from the creeping unease. Out of boredom, or maybe some subconscious pull, I decided to reinstall the app. I didn't expect anything. I wasn't using it, just testing, observing, seeing if it was safe to ignore. And there he was. Same man, same blurry photo, same message. Stop trying to leave. We're not done. My stomach dropped. I swiped away, deleted again. Faster this time. My hands shook as I forced myself to calm down, telling myself it was coincidence, a glitch, a random error. But it didn't feel like that. Because it didn't stop. Days passed and weeks. I tried new devices, different emails, different phone numbers. Each time the same outcome. A fresh installation, a clean account, and there he was. Always first. Always waiting. Always watching. Always the same message, like he had been sitting there behind a code, knowing exactly when I would return. I even tried reverse image searching the blurry photo, desperate for any clue. Nothing. No social media profiles, no alternate accounts, no digital footprints anywhere. Just that single face locked into my screen, staring at me, waiting. It wasn't limited to the original app anymore. Different dating apps, different layouts, different formats. The blurry face appeared on each one. Same photo, same words, always as the first match. The algorithms didn't matter. The platforms didn't matter. He didn't belong to the apps, not really. But somehow he was everywhere. At first, I told myself I could ignore it, that I could refuse to install the app. But curiosity kept gnawing at me. What would happen if I saw him clearly? What if the message had changed? What if there was an explanation? Eventually, I gave in. It was the middle of the night. I sat in the dark, phone in hand, heart hammering. I created a brand new account, entirely fresh. New email, new number, everything. I downloaded the app. Every tap and load felt heavier than the last. I held my breath as the profiles populated, scrolling, waiting. And I saw him. Not blurry this time. Clear, sharp. He was staring straight at me, as if he had been waiting for me to see him properly. My chest constricted. My hands shook. There was no mistaking it. The same man, same face, same unsettling stare. And the message had changed. Took you long enough. Now we can start. I dropped the phone across the room. It hit the floor with a hollow thud, sliding under the desk. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just stared at the blank space on my screen, heart racing, mind spinning with questions I didn't want to ask, with answers I couldn't imagine. I haven't touched my phone since. I stopped reinstalling apps, deleted accounts, changed devices, so we're off swiping for good. I stopped opening my email as often. Even notifications made me anxious. And yet I know deep down that if I ever do go back, if curiosity or boredom ever pushes me to download the app again, he will still be there. Waiting. First in line, the same face, the same stare, the same message. Ready. Because this isn't just an app glitch. It isn't just a bug or a coincidence. He exists in some place I can't access. Somewhere in the lines of code behind the algorithms, he is waiting, patient, watching, and no amount of deletion or erasure will stop him. I lie awake some nights, imagining that screen lighting up in the dark. My chest tightens, my stomach knots. I feel the same shock I felt the first time. A single face, blurry or clear, staring straight at me. Words that make my blood run cold. Stop trying to leave. We're not done. And the terrifying part is knowing it doesn't matter how far I run, how many steps I take away from that app, from the digital world I thought I could control. He is waiting, always waiting. Patient. Calm. And when I finally break, when I finally download again, he will be ready. Took you long enough. Now we can start. The words echo in my mind, the sense of inevitability pressing down. I deleted the app again, threw the phone across the room. But I know, even now, that the game hasn't ended. It's just paused, waiting, watching, patient. And someday, when I'm weak or curious again, it will start. The first time we went out, I thought she was just a foodie. Some people are into that, posting restaurant pictures, ordering the weirdest things on the menu, writing about trying bizarre drinks. That's how she came across online. Lively, energetic, always talking about flavors, textures, the little quirks in food. She picked the place, a little tapas bar tucked down a side street, and from the moment we sat down, she kept nudging me toward trying everything. Every dish, every drink, she insisted I taste it first. At first, it felt fun. She ordered plates I never would have chosen myself. Pickled vegetables with sour, pungent vinegar, spicy sauces that made my lips tingle, strange cocktails with herbs I couldn't pronounce. She leaned in every time I took a bite, smiling and asking questions. How does it feel? Do you notice the aftertaste? Does it hit your tongue differently? I laughed and told her she sounded like a food critic. She just shrugged and said she liked watching people try new things. But it wasn't just curiosity. There was a sharpness in her eyes, a precision that unsettled me. Every time I hesitated, she nudged the plate closer. If I said I didn't like something, she'd immediately push another dish toward me, watching carefully as I chewed. Her gaze didn't leave my face. I could feel it measuring me, every micro-expression, every swallow, every flinch. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking. Maybe she was just enthusiastic, playful, eager to share her favorite foods with someone new. Maybe I was reading too much into it. The second date made me realize I wasn't. She chose a cafe for what she called experimental drinks. The menu was bizarre. Turmeric shots, teas blended with powders I didn't recognize, strange juices with color and aroma that seemed almost unnatural. She ordered 3 different drinks and slid them all toward me before even touching hers. Just try a sip, she said, smiling. But there was something in her tone, an almost imperceptible edge, that made it clear it wasn't optional. I did. The first was bitter and sour, the second burned my throat, and the third left my tongue numb in a way I hadn't felt before. Each time she leaned closer, asking the same questions she'd asked the first night. How does it feel? Is your stomach okay? Do you feel lightheaded? Any dizziness? And I noticed the phone. Every answer I gave, she scribbled something on her screen. My stomach sank. She wasn't just curious, she was recording me, cataloging my responses, my reactions. By the third date, the pattern was undeniable. She ordered wine, beer, cocktails, all different strengths. She ordered dishes stacked with spices, vinegar, even desserts with strange syrups. Every single thing she insisted I try first. She barely touched her own food. And she was meticulous, calculating. Every time I reacted, a cough, a flinch, a pause. She made a note, typed something quickly, glanced up at me to see if she had recorded it correctly. My body started reacting too. After a few bites, I felt flushed. After a drink, my hands shook. After a small spoonful of dessert, my chest tightened, my lips tingled. She asked about every detail. Do you feel sleepy? Is your chest tight? Are you sweating? Is your tongue numb? Did your head feel light? Her questions sharpened, became more precise, like she was running a checklist. I tried to laugh it off, to make jokes, to mask my unease, but inside I was spiraling. Who does that? Who takes someone out not to share an experience, but to test their body, record their reactions, catalog them for some unknown purpose? The fourth date pushed me past curiosity and into outright dread. I tried to back out, saying I wasn't feeling well, but curiosity and some part of me that still hoped I was imagining it pulled me back. We met at a ramen place. She ordered bowls with different broths, each loaded with spices, powders, and strange additives. She barely touched hers again. I took a few bites. The broth burned my lips, my chest tightened, my stomach churned. She leaned in, eyes fixed on me, fingers already typing on her phone. How is it? Any burning sensation? Does your throat feel tight? Is your stomach cramping? Her questions weren't casual. They were precise, almost clinical, detached from conversation. I realized she was monitoring me, cataloging me, logging every reaction with methodical efficiency. I couldn't take it. I slammed my chopsticks down. What the hell are you doing? My voice was louder than I meant, but I couldn't contain it. She smiled calmly, like she'd been waiting for me to notice. "I'd just like to know what affects people," she said, then immediately changed the subject as if nothing had happened. Her demeanor was disturbingly serene, as though she had rehearsed this confrontation, anticipated it, and simply logged it in her mental notes. I didn't finish the meal. I mumbled an excuse, left, and walked home mid-daze. The night replayed in my head endlessly. Every dish, every drink, every moment she had typed something, every pause she took to observe my reactions. It wasn't about enjoying food or sharing an experience. It was about testing me, watching me, documenting me. The thought crawled through my mind with increasing dread. She wasn't building a connection. She wasn't exploring me as a person. She was building a manual, a guide, a dossier on me. I blocked her number, deleted the app, tried to tell myself it was over, tried to breathe, tried to stop thinking about it. But the memory lingers like a shadow in the corner of every social interaction. Every time I taste something new, I remember her gaze, her phone, the way she measured me in tiny, calculated increments. And the worst part, I don't know if she'd done it to anyone else. I don't know what she plans to do with all the information she collected. Recipes for reaction, maps of physical and emotional response. I don't even want to imagine the possibilities. It never felt like she was just curious. It felt deliberate, precise, predatory in a way I can't describe. I keep thinking about it, about her eyes on me, about the way she logged every twitch, every inhale, every wince. I keep imagining her spreadsheet of reactions, the checklist of responses, the hidden tally of my vulnerabilities. I'll never know if she's moved on or if she's cataloging someone else now. But I know one thing, I'll never trust someone's curiosity quite the same way again. Because it wasn't just curiosity, it was construction, calculation, a study, and I was unknowingly the subject. It started like most app stories do. Late night scrolling, swiping when I was bored, not really expecting much. Then I matched with him. He wasn't the type I usually went for. His pictures weren't flashy, just him at a park, at a coffee shop, holding a guitar once. His bio was short, almost minimal, but the way he messaged, it pulled me in fast. There was something subtle about the way he wrote, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone, but still made you feel seen. He was funny, thoughtful, and actually seemed interested in me. Not just a generic "what you doing" or "hey" stuff most people send. His messages were long, detailed, and personal without being oversharing. We exchanged voice notes late at night, talking about everything and nothing. Within weeks, he felt closer than most people I had known in years. He made me feel heard, like I mattered to someone who actually cared. That's a dangerous feeling when it's coming from someone you've never met in real life. We talked about meeting up constantly, but something always came up. He had long shifts at work, family obligations, little emergencies here and there that kept getting in the way. I didn't push. I figured life happens. I told myself it was fine, that when the timing was right, it would happen. Then one night the messages stopped. First a few hours, then the day passed. Then another day. My stomach sank, heavy, cold, empty. My mind spiraled. Maybe he was busy, maybe something happened. Maybe I had done something wrong. Hours felt like years, each minute stretching painfully, until finally a message came. Not from him, but from someone claiming to be his sister. She told me he'd died. Some tragic accident. Quick, sudden, unexpected. The words hit me like a punch to the chest. I couldn't breathe. I cried for someone I had never met, someone I had never touched, someone who had existed primarily in text messages and voice notes. But it was real grief. It wasn't rational. I clutched my phone like it was a lifeline, scrolling through our old messages over and over, listening to his voice notes repeatedly. I memorized the inflections in his speech, the little laughs, the way he said certain words. Months passed. I tried to move on, but it wasn't easy. Every late night swipe, every idle moment alone, I thought of him. I even drafted messages I knew I'd never send, just to imagine responding to him, talking to him again. My life had subtly started orbiting around someone who didn't exist outside of my phone. Eventually, I told myself to let go. I had to. Then one afternoon, while running errands, I froze. Across the street, I saw him. My first thought was denial. My brain couldn't process it. It had to be someone else, a stranger who looked like him, But then I noticed the way he moved, the tilt of his head when he laughed, the slight smirk that had been so familiar in his voice notes. It was him, no doubt. I couldn't breathe. I watched, frozen, as he bent down to grab a toddler's hand. A woman walked up beside him, pushing a stroller. She kissed him on the cheek, and they all walked off together, laughing softly. A family. His family. The pieces fell together in a sickening realization. He wasn't dead. He had never been dead. My legs carried me home almost automatically. My hands shook. My phone trembled in my grip as I scrolled through our old chats, replayed his voice notes, compared them to the man I had just seen. It was identical. Same face, same expressions, same way he carried himself, only now the life I had no place in. I wanted to confront him, demand an explanation, scream at the lies. But the thought of speaking to him, of acknowledging that he had constructed a whole fake life just for me to fall for, terrified me. Instead, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I created a new account in the app, just to see. And there he was. Same profile picture. Same bio. Still active. I matched with him again, curiosity gnawing at me despite my better judgment. Within hours, he messaged me. Same charm, same long, thoughtful responses, same little jokes tucked into the paragraphs, like nothing had happened. The careful construction, the intimacy, the attention, it was all back. It hit me then. I wasn't the first. I wasn't unique. I was part of a carefully crafted escape fantasy he built for himself. A version of life where he could be charming, romantic, free from obligations, free from a wife, free from the responsibility of his real life. A world where he could fall in love with someone who only existed in that narrative. And when it got too close, when I started pushing for a real meeting, he died. Just like that. Wiped clean. Vanished, leaving only grief and confusion in his wake. It was brilliant in its cruelty, in its precision. I had been manipulated so subtly that I didn't even see the mechanics behind it until months later. I deleted the app after that. Didn't message him, didn't expose him, didn't try to warn anyone else. Couldn't bring myself to engage with that version of him ever again. But the memory, it lingers. The way he pulled me in, the intimacy, the comfort, the illusion, it was all real enough to hurt. And the part that haunts me the most, I wasn't his first, and it won't be his last. Somewhere out there, another girl is scrolling late at night, thinking she's connecting with someone who is real, someone who sees her, someone she can trust. She's laughing at his jokes, replying to his voice notes, feeling seen and valued. And somewhere in the background, the real him, the man with the wife and the kids, keeps his distance, knowing exactly how far he can pull someone into his alternate reality before vanishing. And the truth is, he's alive. Alive, smiling, walking his kids to school, making small jokes with his wife, living a life I could never have known. A life that never intersected with the one he created for me. That version of him, the one I knew, never existed. Not really. And yet, for a while, it felt so tangible, so real, that my heart mourned it as though it had been. Even now, months later, I still think about him. Sometimes when my phone buzzes at night, I wonder if it's him again, testing the waters, or someone else following the same pattern. I try not to dwell on it, try not to let it gnaw at me. But the memory lingers, the way he wrote, the way he listened, the way he made me feel like I mattered in a world where, ultimately, I never did. I scroll past the app, but I know there are others who will fall for the same trick. Others who will agree him, write messages that will never be sent, record voice notes that will never be heard again. And somewhere, behind the scenes, he's alive, living, smiling, untouched by the feelings he's engineered. Like the version he gave me never existed at all. I thought it was going well at first. We matched, talked for about a week, and she seemed cool. Smart, funny, knew how to keep a conversation going. I liked that she wasn't dry like most people on dating apps. She suggested grabbing a drink, and I said sure. It felt casual, low pressure, but exciting enough to look forward to. The bar she picked was busy but cozy, with dim lighting and scattered booths. I spotted her immediately as I walked in. She looked just like her pictures, maybe even better. Confident, put together, the kind of person who doesn't seem nervous on a first date. Her smile hit all the right notes, her laugh felt effortless. I remember thinking she was smooth, practiced even, in the way she held the conversation together. Every question she asked, every comment she made, it was like she knew exactly how to keep me hooked. But after a while, I started noticing subtle things that didn't feel right. Her movements were almost too precise, like she was acting out some choreography. Every time I laughed, she paused for just a fraction of a second, like checking a box in her mind. Her tone never wavered, but something about her eyes kept flicking downward, scanning, calculating. Her phone sat face down on the table, but it buzzed constantly. I kept seeing the little ripple of light as it received notifications. She never flipped it over, never checked it openly, but the slight twitch of her fingers told me she was aware of every buzz. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was probably work messages or a friend. But my gut kept nudging me, a quiet alarm in my chest. An hour into the date, she excused herself to the bathroom. While she was gone, I sipped my drink and leaned back in the booth, trying to appear casual, but my eyes kept flicking to the phone. It buzzed again, louder this time, practically vibrating against the table. The screen lit up just enough for me to see part of the notification. It was Discord. Someone had typed, "Ask him about his exes now. See how he reacts." My stomach dropped. My hands tightened around the glass. I leaned forward, reading the words again, trying to convince myself I was hallucinating. But it was real. She had been following instructions. Someone else was giving her prompts, guiding her conversation, and that was the subject. When she returned from the bathroom, she immediately steered the conversation toward past relationships. The question she asked was exactly the one I had seen on the screen. I forced a smile, answered to try to keep my voice steady, but my mind was spinning. Every word I spoke felt like it was being logged, analyzed, critiqued. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just on a date with me. She was streaming it, or at least reporting it live. People were watching, commenting, feeding her lines. She was using me as a demo. The rest of the evening became unbearable. Every movement I made, every gesture, every laugh felt rehearsed back to me in exaggerated slow motion. If I leaned in, she mirrored me. If I glanced away, she paused, waited, and timed her next joke perfectly. Nothing felt organic. I was no longer on a date. I was part of an experiment, an interactive lesson for some invisible audience. Her phone buzzed repeatedly throughout the night, and each time I caught a glimpse of it lighting up, my chest sank. I couldn't see the messages in detail, but the rhythm was the same as before: short instructions, questions, maybe reminders from a private server somewhere. Each notification made me realize I was not alone. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people were seeing my reactions, my discomfort, my unguarded moments. At one point, she laughed and casually mentioned being a dating coach. She brushed it off, smiled, waved her hands like it was nothing, but the seed of horror was planted. A dating coach, with an audience, and that was the experiment. Every question, every answer, every nuance I revealed about myself had been processed, judged, maybe even scored. I kept my eyes glued to her phone when I thought she wasn't looking. The way she typed rapidly, the subtle nods and pauses, it was like she had a director whispering lines in her ear. I couldn't tell if the people on the other side were laughing at me, critiquing me, coaching her, or all three. I felt like a lab rat performing tricks in a cage I hadn't realized I entered. The final straw came when she suggested a second drink. I pretended to agree, but found my mind racing, thinking of ways to escape. My pulse hammered in my ears as I realized that even our laughs and smiles had been manipulated for someone else's amusement. Every response I gave was measured, observed. I didn't know if the Discord server, or whatever platform they were using, had a live count of reactions or a rating system for how authentic I seemed. When the night ended, I got up quickly, murmured something about needing to leave, and she leaned in to say goodbye. Her smile looked genuine, but I couldn't trust it anymore. I felt exposed, like a character who had just discovered the playwright in the corner of the room. I walked her to her car, said a quick goodbye, and left as fast as I could. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A new friend request on Discord appeared. The username was unfamiliar, but the attached message made my chest tighten and my hands freeze on the screen. "Good reactions tonight. You handled the ex's question better than most." I didn't respond. I blocked it immediately. My stomach churned, my mind replaying the evening in endless loops. Every laugh, every pause, every awkward glance. Someone had been watching. Someone had been controlling, guiding, and grading the night, and I had been completely unaware, because I didn't go on a date that night. I was part of a show, a private, interactive, manipulative performance for strangers hidden behind screens. Every instinct I had, the unease, the sudden urge to leave, the creeping suspicion, was real, but by the time I realized it, it was too late. And the thought that haunts me most, That someone somewhere is still doing it. That strangers might still be watching, scripting, and testing people like me. That my reactions, the subtle ones, the unconscious ones, are valuable to someone I'll never meet. I try to remind myself it's over, that the messages are gone, the profile is deleted. But sometimes when I see a Discord notification light up, my heart stops. The memory of her smile, so perfect, so calculated, and the way she manipulated the night like a puppeteer still lingers. I didn't go on a date that night. I was content for someone else's show. I've ghosted people before. Everyone has. Sometimes the vibe just dies out, and instead of dragging it, you stop replying. That's what happened with this guy I matched with. He wasn't bad at first. We texted for about a week, met up once for drinks, and honestly, it was fine. Not terrible, not amazing. Just one of those middle of the road dates where you know deep down it's not going anywhere. He was polite, showed up on time, and laughed at the right moments. But he was a little intense for me. He asked when we hang out again before the night even ended. I brushed it off politely, told him I'd let him know. The texts after that were manageable at first. A hey, how's your day? Here, I haven't eaten yet there. Then it started getting heavier. Constant check-ins, little probes about where I was, what I was doing, who I was with. It was too much, too soon. The excitement that comes from a new connection vanished under a weight of questions and insistence. So I did what a lot of people do. I stopped replying. No fight, no explanation. Just silence. The first couple of days, he sent a barrage of texts. Hey, are you busy? Did I do something wrong? Hello? Then it slowed down. A week passed. I assumed he'd moved on, and I relaxed a little. Then came the voice note. It was around 3 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I had been half asleep, scrolling absent-mindedly before drifting off when the notification lit up. It was a new message on the app. From him. My stomach sank immediately because I knew I hadn't blocked him yet. I hadn't replied either, but the sudden ping in the middle of the night made my skin prickle. It wasn't a text this time. It was a voice note. 47 seconds long. I stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to listen. My mind spun with possibilities, all of them bad. But curiosity won. I tapped play. At first, it was just breathing. Heavy close to the mic. Slow and deliberate. Not like someone recording casually. It sounded intimate, invasive, like the phone was pressed directly against his mouth. My chest tightened instantly. My hand shook slightly as I held the phone to my ear. I waited, thinking the sound would resolve into a sentence, a greeting, maybe even a threat. But it didn't. Just steady, slow, measured breathing, filling the room through my earbuds. Then something else. Something subtle, but unmistakable. A faint hum. It took me a moment to place it. The background noise, the soft vibration, the gentle drone. That was my fridge. My own fridge. I sat up straight in bed. My heart raced. My brain refused to move for a moment. I replayed the note, cranking the volume, straining to catch every sound. And then I heard more. The creak of a door, my bathroom door, unmistakable. The faint tick of my wall clock, even the muffled buzz of the streetlight outside my window. This wasn't just some random recording made elsewhere. It was my apartment. Somehow he had been inside my apartment. Somewhere, somehow, he had crossed my threshold and recorded himself breathing. Standing there in the dark, holding his phone close, listening to me sleeping, watching the space I call home. I froze. My limbs refused to move. The phone shook slightly in my hand as I stared at it in disbelief. Every noise in my apartment, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, the faint hiss of the radiator, felt magnified, as if it were him walking, hiding, lurking somewhere I couldn't see. I kept playing the note, each time picking up a different sound I recognized. My desk chair creaking, the faint clink of the mugs in the cupboard. Every detail confirmed it. He had been there. Sleep was impossible after that. I couldn't stay in one spot. Every bump, every shift of air, every sound outside my window made me jump. I paced, checked the locks on the doors, even peeked out the window to see if anyone was lurking near the building. My phone stayed by my side at all times, flashlight ready, alarm ready. I thought about calling the police, but what could I say? A guy I ghosted sent me a recording of him in my apartment. It sounded insane even in my own head. No matter how carefully I phrased it, I knew they would have laughed, or at least treated me like I was overreacting. The hours crawled by. Every time I blinked, I could hear the breathing again in my mind. The same slow, methodical rhythm. My home no longer felt like mine. Every room seemed suspicious, every shadow threatening. By morning, the message was gone. Deleted. His profile, too. Vanished completely like he had never existed on the app. I double-checked my contacts, scrolled through old messages. Everything was gone. No evidence. Nothing to trace, no trail, no warning. But I'll never forget that recording. 47 seconds of him. 47 seconds of slow, deliberate, invasive breathing. My fridge humming softly in the background. The faint tick of my wall clock. The sound of my own home, proof that he had been there. Even now, weeks later, I check my locks compulsively. I double-check the windows at night. I jump at small noises. Footsteps, the brush of wind against the building, even the hum of my fridge. I can't stop imagining it. Him, standing in my apartment, listening, recording, watching. I don't know when it happened. I don't know how long he was there. I don't know if it will happen again. The worst part is the uncertainty. He could have been there yesterday, today, or maybe even is still watching. The line between safe at home and somebody else in my space vanished in that single recording. And every time my phone buzzes, even with a benign notification, I jump. Because in that moment I remember, someone has crossed the threshold of my life. Someone I trusted, at least at first, has been in the one place I thought was mine. Costing him didn't protect me. Silence didn't stop him. And I can't shake the thought that somewhere he knows that just ignoring him didn't end it. 47 seconds. That's all it took. And the worst part, I'll never know when it might happen again. I thought it was going to be a normal night. We'd matched on the app a couple of weeks earlier and met up for coffee once before. She was easy to talk to, a little quiet, but nothing strange. The second time we hung out, she invited me back to her place after dinner. I hesitated for a moment, because going to someone's house that early feels like skipping steps, but she smiled and said it would just be for a drink, nothing more. There was a casualness to her tone that made it sound harmless. Her place was in a quiet neighborhood, a small house that looked ordinary from the outside. Nothing stood out, nothing alarming. Inside, it was clean and organized, lived in but not cluttered. There was a faint scent of vanilla in the air, soft music playing from a small speaker, and the lighting was warm. It felt cozy, even welcoming. I remember thinking that maybe this would just be another chill evening. She poured us both a drink, and we sat down in the living room. That's when I noticed it, the big framed family portrait hanging on the wall above the couch. At first, it seemed normal. Many people have family photos displayed prominently. The image looked professional. Everyone dressed nicely, smiling, posed in front of a backdrop that suggested a studio. She, two older people who I assumed were her parents, maybe a sibling or cousin, and a couple of relatives I didn't recognize. Everything about the photo screamed ordinary until my eyes wandered to the far corner of the frame. My stomach dropped, because I was in it. I froze mid-sip, heart hammering, blinking as if maybe my eyes were playing tricks. But it wasn't a reflection, it wasn't light or shadow. There I was, unmistakably me, standing near the edge of the group, smiling like I belonged there. Same face, same hair, same eyes. Only my clothes were wrong, sweater I'd never worn, shoes I didn't own. My arm rested casually on the shoulder of a man I'd never met, standing behind me. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. My drink sat untouched in my hand as I studied every detail. My expression in the photo wasn't forced or awkward. It wasn't blurry or off-center. It looked natural, easy, like I had been part of that family for years. Like I had lived in that house, celebrated countless moments there, long before I ever met her or saw her profile in that app. Finally, I forced myself to look at her. She was watching me casually calm, sipping her drink. Her eyes flicked toward me, then back to the glass, as if daring me to speak. No explanation, no acknowledgement. Just that faint smile, steady and unsettling. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "That's your family?" I asked. She shrugged lightly as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world. "Yeah," she said. "Nothing special." Her tone was flat, almost dismissive. It was like she didn't see me there at all, like she was teasing me silently, seeing how long it would take for me to notice. The air felt thick. My chest tightened. I kept looking around the room, trying to distract myself, but my eyes kept snapping back to the portrait, to my own face smiling back at me from years I had never lived. She started talking about other things, her job, her neighbors, hobbies she liked. I barely listened. Every sound around me felt distant, muted by the loud drum of my own racing heartbeat. All I could see was that photo. All I could imagine was my face frozen there, smiling and existing in a life I hadn't yet lived. At one point, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Mostly, I just needed to get out of the living room. On the way down the hallway, I noticed more framed photos lining the walls. Smaller ones, snapshots of birthdays, barbecues, vacations at the beach. And in each, there I was again. Different clothes each time. Slightly different angles, slightly different expressions. But always unmistakably me. I could feel panic building. My chest tightened, stomach churning. I didn't even go to the bathroom. I just stood in the hall, staring at the walls. Every image felt like a trap. My mind raced. How could this be possible? How could someone have photos of me in places I had never been, with people I didn't know? And yet here I was smiling in them, casual, at home in moments that had never happened. When I finally returned to the living room, she was sitting there as calmly as ever. The portrait loomed over her like a silent judge. My face stared down from it, still smiling. I could barely speak, but I forced myself to say, I think I should go. She nodded slowly, still smiling faintly. She didn't argue, didn't hug me, didn't try to make me stay. She walked me to the door and let me leave. Nothing more. The house felt quiet as I stepped outside. Ordinary calm, yet nothing about that night would ever feel ordinary again. The entire ride home, I couldn't stop replaying the images. My own face frozen in moments I had never lived. My hands shaking as I gripped the steering wheel. The way she had calmly, deliberately ignored my questions. The way the walls had been lined with photos that I didn't belong in, it somehow was. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I looked like a distant relative. Maybe it was a coincidence, a trick of angles and lighting. Maybe my mind was playing cruel tricks, or the photos were doctored somehow. But I knew my own face, my expressions. The way my smile curved. That was me. And I had never been in those places, in those moments before that night. And the worst part, I can't shake the feeling that somewhere in her house another photo is already waiting. A frame on a wall, polished and ready, capturing the moment we sat on our couch together that night. Smiling, casual, as if I had always belonged there. I don't know how she did it. I don't know what she wants. But I do know one thing. Every time I close my eyes, I can still see that portrait. My own face staring back, smiling, waiting. I've been on enough dating app meetups to know when something feels off. You learn to spot the red flags after a while. Guys who only want to hang at your place right away, guys who treat the app like a clearance aisle, guys who show up sloppy or 20 years older than their photos. I thought I'd seen it all. But this one hit me in a way I still can't explain. We talked for about a week before meeting. He wasn't the chattiest, but he was polite. His messages were short, almost blunt, but never rude. I figured maybe he was just awkward, or the kind of person who does better in person than over text. Not everyone is a smooth talker on a screen. He suggested dinner at a restaurant downtown, public, well-lit, safe. That checked my boxes, so I said yes. The night of, I walked in and spotted him right away. He was already at the table, sitting up straight, hands folded in front of him. When he saw me, he stood, smiled, and waved. The first thing I noticed was how normal he looked. Neat haircut, nice shirt, clean shoes. Exactly like his pictures, maybe even better in person. For the first 2 minutes, everything felt fine. He pulled out my chair, sat back down across from me, and smiled again. I waited for the usual icebreaker. How was your drive? Or, you look nice. Something. Anything. But he didn't say a word. At first, I thought maybe he was nervous and waiting for me to start, so I asked how his day was. That's when he pulled out his phone. He typed something quickly, then turned the screen toward me. It said, "Good, excited to see you." I gave a little laugh, assuming it was a joke. Wow, going full tech-age communication, ha. But he didn't laugh. He just smiled, too wide, too stiff, and slid the phone back to type again. That's how the entire dinner went. I asked questions, made comments, tried to keep the conversation flowing, but he never once opened his mouth. Everything he said, he typed into his phone and showed me. Yes, I like movies. This food is good. Short, stilted sentences. Halfway through, I tried to be direct. I asked if something was wrong with his voice. Maybe he had laryngitis or some medical condition. He shook his head quickly and typed, "I prefer this." That was it. The longer it went on, the more uncomfortable I felt. The other diners had started to notice too. A couple at a nearby table kept sneaking glances, probably wondering why I was carrying on a conversation with a phone. What made it worse was the way he looked at me. He never stopped watching my face. His eyes didn't drift, not once. It wasn't the nervous darting of a shy guy. It was fixed, intent, like he was studying every micro-expression. His smile never dropped either. That same polite, too-practiced smile plastered across his face while I read his typed words. It didn't feel like a date. It felt like an interview, or worse, like I was the subject of an experiment. By the time the check came, I was practically squirming in my seat. He grabbed the bill immediately, slid his card in, and signed without a word. Then he typed, "I'll walk you out." I said it wasn't necessary, that I could leave on my own, but he insisted, already standing. Outside, the streetlights buzzed overhead, casting pale yellow light across the sidewalk. He stood by the curb with that same expression, frozen smile, eyes locked on me, and typed one last thing. "I had a great time. I'll see you again soon." Then he waved, slipped his phone into his pocket, and walked off into the night without looking back. I just stood there, staring after him, trying to shake the crawling feeling under my skin. Maybe he had selective mutism. Maybe it was some quirky preference I didn't understand. Maybe he was just unbearably awkward. I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but the whole night played back in my head on a loop, and the unease wouldn't let go. Later that night, I was in bed scrolling when my phone buzzed with a new text. Not from him. From an unknown number. I figured maybe he was finally texting normally from a different line, so I opened it. And that's when my stomach dropped. The message said, "Thanks for meeting him. Now I know who to send next." I froze, read it again, and again. It wasn't his number. Different area code entirely. No contact info, just a raw string of digits I didn't recognize. My heart hammered as I typed back, "Who was this?" No response. I tried calling. The line clicked once, then went straight to a disconnected tone, the kind you get when a number doesn't exist at all. I blocked it, but blocking didn't make me feel any safer, because the wording of the message burrowed into me, sharp and cold. It didn't say, "Thanks for meeting me." It said, "Thanks for meeting him," which meant whoever sent that text wasn't the man I just had dinner with. They were someone else entirely. Someone who knew about the date. Someone who'd been watching. And the final part of the message was worse than anything. Now I know who to send next. Not if, not maybe. Next. Like the man I met was only one in a line. Like he was a test, a placeholder, a practice run. And whoever was behind that message already had another lined up. I had deleted the app the next morning. I blocked his profile too, though it didn't make me feel any better. I told myself it was probably some sick joke, some scam number, some glitch in the app. But deep down, I don't believe that. Because when I close my eyes, I can still see him sitting across the table, smiling that stiff, frozen smile, typing those clipped sentences while his eyes never left mine. And every time I replay that night, one thought keeps cutting through louder than the rest. I wasn't on a date. I was being prepared for whoever's coming next.